Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Albert Wynn. He's the Analytics Capper. You can find him on Twitter at Analytics Capper. Albert, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good, man. My little one turned 2 years old, had a big birthday party for her on Saturday, had like 50 people at the house. It's probably why I'm a little sick, but we'll see. I did watch a ton of basketball over the weekend, which was awesome. But things are good, man. How are you doing?
Good. Had a good weekend, including bet the under on Warriors Celtics, which we'll talk a lot about today on the show. This is your weekend recap. We'll go over the relevant news from the weekend, the most important covers, and get you a sense for where the league is at from an awards perspective. Everything we talk about today can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. It's the best way for you to track your picks. You get up to the second information where all the bets and money are coming in on. So you can do things like, I've been doing a thing where if I have a lean on an under, and I wait till morning and the market pushes it up, I'm just like, I'll pass. I'm good. The market disagrees with me to a strong extent. And so I'm staying away from those versus, sometimes you lose a little bit of CLV. That's why I usually play the spreads a little bit more, but you get all the information. You're more informed better if you use the Action Network app. You get all of our podcasts, all of our great stuff. Check it out right now. All right, let's go ahead and get started here, Albert. And we're going to go ahead and get started because we got to talk Tatum. Jayson Tatum is the MVP favorite at FanDuel Sportsbook. The odds have moved in his favor once again. And now, despite the loss of the Warriors, which we'll talk quite a bit about today, Jayson Tatum is plus 270 to win most valuable player this season. We've talked a lot about on various shows, we've talked about where this award is at. Brandon and I talked about it on Friday. I want to kind of revisit it. The Warriors beat the Celtics on Saturday night in the first marquee Saturday night matchup on ABC, and they did it rather handily. Klay Thompson was absolutely liquid fire. Steph Curry did his thing. The Warriors, look, I've said this, if it wasn't a statement game, it felt like a series of very bolded sentences because it was definitely a reminder of who this team is and how, look, you can go through whatever, but they'll be there at the end of the day. No Horford, no Williams. Robert Williams made the trip, but didn't play for the Celtics. Tatum struggled once again with how the Warriors have played. Mm-hmm. So after that, Tatum remains the favorite for MVP. The Celtics are still a game and a half up on the Bucks. I guess the question here is, Tatum's numbers don't stack up with the rest of the MVP candidates. I post them every morning, every Monday on HP Basketball on Twitter. His numbers are good. They're great. Like, he's having a phenomenal season. No doubt about that. Not Luka Doncic, not Joel Embiid, not Giannis, not Steph. And the argument is, well, they're on pace for like 65 wins and they look like the best team in the league and all these kind of things. Do you have a reason why the voters will reward winning this season when they didn't necessarily reward it the past two seasons when Nikola Jokic won with sub 50?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a great discussion that we can have. One thing about that game you forgot to mention is although there was no Horford or Williams, there wasn't Wiggins for the Warriors either, right? The best defender on their team. So the Warriors beat them pretty handily without their best perimeter defender. But back to this MVP discussion, Matt. I would say it's because of again, this is me just projecting here, but I think it could be the gap of the wins for Boston versus the rest of the league, except Milwaukee. Milwaukee is close to Boston, but everyone else is kind of like just middling around, a little bit over 500, whereas Boston has come out really, really fast out of the gate. I think that's why it's gotten a lot of momentum, is because of their unbelievable record. If we had 4, 5, 6 teams that have won 70% or better of their games, maybe Tatum would not be the favorite as right now. But because it's clear front and center that Boston is the number one team, I think that's why Tatum is number one in terms of MVP voting. But I completely agree with you, Matt, especially with how Joel Embiid is playing right now in December and had another 50 spot the other night. These numbers by these individual superstars just have been absurd and ridiculous, and they should be, bigger favorites in the MVP race.
So ESPN's likely putting out a straw poll this week on the MVP, and I'll be very curious to see where those votes come in at. I'm expecting Tatum to get a larger percentage than maybe I would think he deserves, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting here is I do think if you're looking at to bet MVP, I would tell you to wait until after that straw poll drops, because if Tatum, like, there's only two outcomes here. Tatum is the favorite reflected by the vote that everybody right now would vote for Tatum, at which point we're going to get better value on Giannis, Luka, Steph, whoever you want to put in there. So you'll get better value after Tatum moves up, or Tatum's not number one. And that gives us a strong indication that, one, Tatum is not bettable, and whoever comes out of number one, now the odds will move, so you're going to want to be on top of it. As soon as that straw poll comes out, the books are going to react to it. We saw this last year. Like that, these are the poll is made up of likely voters or people that fit the profile of a voter. And so, if ESPN puts out the poll this week, then you're going to find, I think, an indication that of who is the actual leader in the clubhouse. And I would even say that if Tatum's number one, whoever's number two is the person that I would definitely look at, because you kind of mentioned this. The Bucks are just a game and a half back. Like the Bucks lost to the Rockets on Sunday night. The conversation I kind of asked is like, how are the Bucks this close? And the response was mostly like, well, look, their schedule's been really easy. Okay. But the Bucks have been really good versus everybody throughout their time with Giannis versus the stretch where they're title contenders. Like, I don't necessarily see the schedule getting, if you told me that the schedule was going to get worse in terms of back-to-backs, okay, they play a lot of home games. So maybe that's the argument, is they're going to be more tired. But this is the first real West Coast road trip for the Celtics. I don't know that necessarily they're going to be healthier as things go on. I just very strongly feel that Jayson Tatum won't be one when we get to April. I don't think he'll be two. He might be three, but I don't think he finishes top two. I could be wrong on that. I'm not so confident in it that I wouldn't bet that he won't be top two, but I do think there's good value on whoever you want to find, because I can't rationalize Tatum from either I've written about how I think the Celtics regress. You look at Tatum and the numbers don't stack up. I just can't see any sort of reason to be like, oh, it's just clearly going to be Tatum. Even if they win 65 games, the Suns did last year and Booker didn't. And Tatum's numbers are better than Booker's. I need to be clear on that. His numbers are better than Booker's. But if he regresses at all, they'll be in line with Booker's. So to me, I simply cannot get around the idea of betting on Jayson Tatum for MVP right now.
No, it makes complete sense to me. You've made me a believer. I think I was on Tatum when he had the fourth best odds. Now, as the front runner, there's really no value. We'll get into this award more often or later on the show, but I like Luka and Steph in terms of value right now.
One thing I want to talk about with effort, the Bucks may have kind of breezed through, and honestly, they're not all that impressive when you dig under the hood. Like, their offense has been terrible. They're gritting out games. They snuck out that win versus the Mavericks the other night. But I'll say this, the Celtics are playing extremely hard, and I want to reward them for that. Like, I want to credit them. It's you should try. That's your job. But it's an 82-game season, and there's a reason that a lot of teams don't. And so when I look at how hard Boston's playing and look at all the effort that they're giving in, I cannot help but on some level be a little bit like, I don't know if this is going to work out long term. So I worry a little bit about how hard Boston plays and sustaining it. Now, the counter argument might be the 2012 Bulls, or 2011 Bulls, pardon me, the 2011 Bulls, where they played extremely hard every single night, played heavy minutes and did all this stuff and racked up this great regular season win. And Derrick Rose won MVP. Like, that to me might be the comp here for a Tatum case.
And we know what happened there in the playoffs. So hopefully not the same story.
Right. Let's go ahead and get into the most important covers from the weekend. Like I mentioned, the Warriors, I thought they gave a healthy reminder that when you reach the end of the road, the Warriors are going to be waiting. Like, there's been this like, oh, they're so terrible, and look at this in the offense, I'm really worried. And I've consistently been like, they're going to be fine. And then they go out and they take care of business versus Boston. Now, look, I bet the under on the Warriors. Bet looks great. I think I've got a really good chance at cashing that. I don't expect the Warriors to go on any sort of like dominant prolonged stretch. They'll have little bits here and there where they win games, but to me, this was just a reminder of like the Warriors know exactly where they're at. Like you need to be aware that like the Warriors know where they're at. The Warriors are conserving for the playoffs. The
Yep.
Warriors don't have any interest in racking up. Right, it's not that they can't win these games; it's that they're not going to dedicate the resources mentally, physically to get them done. But that was a big time game. It felt like a big time atmosphere, and the Warriors sent a message in that game.
Yeah, from a betting standpoint, Matt, that was my favorite bet all week long in the NBA. I was on Warriors big money line as well as spread. But you're right. I'm going to give you your flowers. You've been, writing about the Warriors and not to worry about them all season long. My only argument is it's tough to win if you don't have home court advantage. So if they continue to be, lackadaisical, or they take their time and they don't get a top four seed and they have to go on the road all three series, that's just tough. So again, they still are the champs. They still have arguably the best player right now. Steph Curry is out of this world. And when you have a guy like Klay Thompson or Jordan Poole that can have a hot shooting night like that, they are pretty much unbeatable, because from a defensive fundamental standpoint, there's no one that really can handle them, to be honest. Draymond Green is just that good. So I do like this team. They are built for the playoffs, but they just need to make sure to get a top four seed to make sure that run is a lot easier. But that's the only thing I have on this team.
I guess my only counter argument might be that it would be very Warriors to screw around and everyone be like, yeah, but they're going to have to go on the road all 3 rounds. They're the 5 seed. And then, they beat the 4 seed, and then the 1 seed gets upset by the 8 because it's like the Pels or something. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I guess they didn't. And then like all of a sudden it's like, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Warriors not get a top 2 seed and yet not have to go on the road. It wouldn't shock me at all with some of the teams that are up there at the top. So one of those teams, the New Orleans Pelicans, go to 2-0 over the weekend versus the Suns, including a very nasty win in the first set of the duplex set with the Zion Williamson 360 dunk as time expired. Words were exchanged. Jose Alvarado will not be putting Chris Paul on his Christmas list. I think the question now is, they've done this without Ingram. I think they're better without Ingram. I just have to kind of say that. I think they're better without Ingram. Zion gets the ball more, which is a good thing. What do you think is the ceiling for the Pels? Like, what's the absolute limit of what the Pelicans do you think can accomplish this season based off of how they've played, how they've looked, and what their win profile looks like?
I think their ceiling is the NBA Finals. I don't think they can win the entire thing, but I've been bullish on this team since day one of this year, to be honest. They have the versatility not only on offense and defense to really win series 4 out of 7 games, but they have the ability to get really hot. They have the ability to switch on defense. I think that type of hunger, the athleticism, the youth, I think it's enough. I love this team. Again, health has always been a big issue, and it's not just Zion. A lot of their players are hurt all the time as well, especially Brandon Ingram and others. But if they stay healthy, they have the coaching staff and the players to make an NBA Finals run. I don't know once they get there if they can win it. They're still so young, but I think that's my ceiling for them. It's NBA Finals or nothing for me.
Yeah, I can't get there. I think there's too much inexperience. You got Willie Green that would be in his first time coaching past the first round. You got Zion in his first playoff really experience. Ingram's had a few stints, but nothing serious, nothing to really write home about. Even McCollum, honestly, like McCollum's been on a team that made the Western Conference Finals, but those Blazer teams weren't like real threats. I haven't seen anybody on this team be a part of a squad that has enough experience, right? Like they haven't been on a team that's made a deep run, and I tend to be skeptical. I feel like a lot of the things there will come a time when some sort of weakness will become apparent with the Pelicans, and when it does, it'll be interesting to see how teams pick on that. Right now, we don't know what that is. The Raptors, speaking of duplex sets, went 0-2 versus the Magic, and the vibes are bad. I'm used to Raptors fans being what I refer to as Cindy Lou Who's, which is like no matter what, they're still down in Whoville singing. I'm used to the Raptors fans always being happy and being like, oh well, we have Scotty Barnes and we won the title 3 years ago, and instead they're like there is like an undercurrent of should Nurse be fired in Raptors Twitter. And I was like, and a lot of voices being like, no, obviously not. But I was shocked to find that kind of conversation. Their starters are playing a ton of minutes. This is their formula last year, and they're still playing they're playing their guys 35 minutes to lose to the Magic. That's pretty rough. And it looks a little bit like they're starting to get a little gassed. And if they don't have effort, I'm not sure what this Raptors team has. And that concerns me for how far this thing might slip.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt. I mean, this team has been built on great coaching, great length, great athleticism, and effort, as you said. Guys like OG and Pascal and Scotty, Fred VanVleet, all these guys are great defenders individually, and they make up a great team defense that honestly hasn't been playing really well on defense this year, Matt. Maybe that's something you could dive deeper into the numbers, but they have the defensive players, but they don't have a great team defense. With that being said, it's tough to really judge a team on Sundays. As you know, Sundays in the NBA are really weird, especially for the road team. I backed the Magic from a betting perspective yesterday, so if I felt good with that. But yeah, the vibes are bad. But the great thing with the NBA is you get 3 or 4 games each week, and if you go 4-0, the vibes are good again. So we'll see if they are able to turn it around. This is a team where I'm not too worried about. The fact that they're talking about firing Nick Nurse is ludicrous to me. He's one of the best coaches in the league. I'm sure he'll get his players back.
The Nets are 8-2 in their last 10. They are currently plus 1,600 to win the title. I bet that. They are plus 700 to win the conference. I bet that. And they're plus 2,800 to win the division. I bet that. They're 6 back in the division. It's going to take a lot for them to catch Boston. Look, I've been banging this drum a couple of weeks that I think the Nets are good. They got a really feel-good win they rested all their guys on the back-to-back versus the Pacers, and Cam Johnson and those guys in the ABA jerseys went out and found a way to get a win. The vibe is just entirely different now that Jacques Vaughn's in charge. And when you got KD, who's still playing at an MVP level, and you have the kind of talent that they do, they're very versatile. They have a lot of options. The defense, I think, still a suspect, but the numbers have been good for them defensively, even over the last couple of weeks. It's bizarre to me that now I have to say that they're in a point where they're undervalued, but Brooklyn, for all of their nonsense, I think has a pretty good roster. It's coming together and they're playing the right way right now. I think this team is a lot more dangerous than the odds reflect.
Yeah, I'm higher on Brooklyn than most. The thing with Brooklyn, though, it's always good until it isn't, right? There's always going to be something that comes up, whether it's a week from now or a month from now. It's always something with this team. But you're right. The one thing you said that resonates is the vibes are different with Jacques Vaughn. And I think that type of leadership, that type of coach is exactly what this team needed. And you're seeing the players respond. Defense is better, even though they don't have defensive players. That means they're trying harder. And Ben Simmons has been out for a while, and he's just getting back in. So I expect that defense to be even better. Integrating all their pieces together is continue to be a development. So I do like this team. 6 games seems like a lot, and I know we're only 25, 30 games in the season, so it is a lot. But one losing streak here or one injury to a Tatum or a Brown, and you never know. So I think that's a good value bet there.
And finally, if you had to bet the awards, each week we go through and say if we had to bet them, and we'll let you know if we actually do bet them. For MVP, I'll go ahead and start. I think the MB is the best value right now at plus 1,200. He took over the scoring lead over the weekend. Mm-hmm. Sixers continue to kind of plug along. They haven't really found their groove. Tyrese Maxey's not even back yet. They've weathered the storm, though. And with Embiid leading the league in scoring, he actually is top 10 in defensive EPM over dunks and threes. So there's a lot of things going kind of in their direction right now. The overall numbers for the Sixers are not great, but that's exactly it. Like if you're looking for a buy low spot, this is it. Like Embiid's likely to get shorter as the season goes on. I think 1,200 is too long. So for me, the best value for MVP right now is Joel Embiid.
I fully agree with you. And Embiid, man, he loves Sundays for some reason. A month ago, he had 59, 11, 8, and 7 blocks. Yesterday, he had 53, 12, and 3. He's the first center in the Shaq era, since the Shaq era, with 2 50-point games in one season. And I don't think he's anywhere close to being done. He might get a couple more before the season's over. So I do like that number. Right now, the scoring leader, and he's killing it. He's averaging over 41 points in the 4 games in December. So he is in form. If you watch that game, James Harden is only looking for Joel Embiid on the roll. Like he's not looking at anyone else. So if he's going to get that type of usage with his efficiency around the hoop and his ability to shoot free throws, he's going to have amazing numbers all year long. So I like this number. Steph Curry's value or Steph Curry's number has gone backwards. I think it was at plus 700 last week. It's now back to plus 1,000. So 10 to 1 there. I think that's another good value spot because Steph Curry is having another unbelievable year shooting wise, arguably his best year of his career in terms of pure numbers. And you expect that team to go on a little bit of a run moving forward. So I think both Embiid, Steph Curry, and Luka, who is a potential buy low spot right now. I know it's still plus 300, so it's not the best value, but the vibes are really bad in Dallas. They've lost 2 straight. There's some tension between Luka and the coaching staff. So I think it's a good time to buy low because you expect that team to kind of turn the corner soon.
Yeah, I feel Luka MVP is the same as the Warriors win the title, where you're like, this has got to be a buy low spot. And the books are like, nope, not having it. Not going to give you any value. Not falling for it. You're not going to trick us. 6th man of the year. I love Norman Powell right now. I mentioned this on Friday's show. He's still plus 6,500. Last 15 games, he is averaging 19 points per game, which is the most for any bench player. We know the bench points are what matters in this award. I understand the injury concerns, but I'll just say this, like, what if Kawhi does actually wind up playing for the duration? And what if in those times that he doesn't play, Powell continues to come off the bench because he's playing so well in that spot? So Powell at plus 16,500 to me is objectively the best value. What do you think?
Yeah, I like Norman Powell a lot. He has turned it up big time since that really slow start to the season. So I agree with you there. I have a question for you. How many games can a player start before they're ineligible for 6-man? Do you know that?
I think it's a majority. You have to play the majority of your games off of the bench, but I think it'd be hard for him to win the award if
Okay,
they.
no, I asked that because I think the obvious choice that we're all overlooking could be Jordan Poole, because I think Klay Thompson is going to be load managed and he's going to miss a game here and there, maybe 1 or 2 a week, and I think that's going to allow Jordan Poole to start those games. And every time Klay Thompson and or Steph Curry sits out a game, Jordan Poole just has 30 points like every single time. So
Yep.
I think that's going to bump up his numbers. And I think he might be the obvious choice here at the end of the season because we're trying to find value and we're overlooking the easy choice, which I don't think is Russell Westbrook. I think is Jordan Poole.
I agree. Most improved player. Look, I've got a big position on Shea in this. I'm doing a deep dive on Tyrese Halliburton. I'll be looking at him later in the week. But right now, Bol really is worth a look at 3,600. So he doesn't fit any of the models. Brandon would be freaking out right now with me mentioning this. He doesn't play for a good team. He's not going to be an all-star. He's not going to get all NBA consideration. But there are these exceptions, and Bol is a player that was so far out of the rotation and so far, like almost out of the league. And for him to be a starter that's putting up these numbers, if you just check the numbers and you don't watch any of the Magic games, you will come away very impressed with Bol. Now, I think Bol's made a lot of plays. He also tends to get benched down the stretch in close games, and that's for, a reason. But still, Bol's raw value at 36 to 1 based off of how much hype he's getting and how much I think there's a strong narrative push with him gives him a little bit of value here. What's your pick?
Yeah, I see that. I think this guy has a lot of value right now as well. Ant-Man is 65 to 1. I think he's going to get CLV as the season goes on, especially with Karl Anthony Towns out. He's going to get more usage, better numbers. I think he had a 3-game stretch last week where he had 20 steals in 3 games, which is unheard of when you think about Anthony Edwards. But they're starting to play a little better. They're getting Rudy Gobert a little more integrated into their defense and offense. And now with only one big guy kind of clogging up the paint, Anthony Edwards has a little more freedom to roam. So I think his numbers are going to get better. I don't know if he's going to win this award. 65 to 1, though, I think you're going to get 55 to 1 by next week if he continues to play well.
For defensive player of the year, I'm still on Jared Allen. He's at plus 3,100. He was plus 4,500 last week. I continue to believe that he's the best defender on the Cavs. The numbers back that up. I still love the value on him. But you seem to have had a little revelation when it comes to defensive player of the year. What do you got for me?
I was in the building Friday night for the Bucks Mavericks game. It was an awesome game. Terrible ending for Mavericks bettors. I got them at +1. They missed their last 5 free throws to lose that game by 1. The push felt like a loss, Matt, but With that being said, Brook Lopez was dominating the paint all night long. Yes, he got dunked on by Dinwiddie in the second half, which was amazing, but he blocked Dinwiddie 3 times at the rim before that. He blocked Dorian Finney-Smith. I think he got Luka a couple times. He didn't fall for Luka's pump fakes. I mean, Brook Lopez, I was slandering him throughout the season leading up to today's episode, but after watching him live in person, he is the anchor to that defense. And it allows Giannis to kind of roam around the perimeter and play safety. And because Brook Lopez is just finishing everything up at the paint. So I like Brook Lopez. I think it's his award to lose right now, and he is the betting favorite. So I think it's justified. But if I didn't have to put, if I wanted to pick someone else that's a long shot, I put this in our notes here. But Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., his defensive metrics and numbers are out of this world. Like, he doesn't play that much, and he's missed a ton of games because of injuries. But when he's on the floor, in terms of defensive impact, I think he's second to none.
Yeah, I was on NBA bet stream for that Grizzlies Thunder game last week and had the Thunder, and Jackson just wiped out like 4 Thunder plays on his own late, early in the fourth quarter. It was really impressive. All right, it's going to do it for Buckets. Reminder to download the award-winning Action Network app, to rate, review our podcast for a chance to win a free 1-year subscription to Action Pro. Hit us with those 5-star reviews. Let us know what you think on Twitter. I'm at HP Basketball. Albert's at Analytics Capper. Thanks for joining us. Our thanks to David Payne, our producer. And until next time, let's get buckets.